Up to now, they are playing cat and mouse game in courts, trying to justify and make use of the loophole. With this committee, I look forward for us to come and give some proposal on strengthening of those laws. If you look at asset recovery, when I was with the Anti-Corruption Commission, one of the biggest problems we had was the lack of the mutual legal assistance. You try to move to Netherlands, these guys have planned that there's somebody who is an investigator, he wants to do investigation in this country, and he is not an illegal entity of carrying out investigation. If you fool around, immediately you are out of the aircraft, you can be arrested. So now there is a process of mutual legal assistance that is going on, but we want to extend it to the law enforcement agencies of those countries as opposed to government to government. Both ways, concurrently, they go with government to government, and at the same time, they go as institution to institution. Just like the way intelligence organization shares information on terrorism, we can have the same. This organization sharing information of illegally acquired assets, so that we are able to focus and pinpoint that this is the place we are going against this individual, and it takes a very short time to do a recovery. The essence of that is that by doing such kind of approach, the message to those who are now trying to get is that at the end of the day, I'm going to lose this money. So deterrence is a very big issue. So I have addressed the issue of pieces of legislation. There is that question Honorable Munene asked about out-of-court settlement. Maybe you'll correct me, sir, but the way I understand it is that you have here somebody who has been caught. You have moved with him until he has accepted that, yes, these assets are illegally acquired. I did not get the end question of that, sir. Maybe you can come back to that question, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you negotiate with him?
Okay.
When is there overwhelming evidence of corruption, can you settle for out-of-court settlement?
I will try to dwell on the experiences. It has happened now. It has happened. There are people who are given pieces of land before 2002. And I remember when I was in that commission, we were pursuing them. And this is one of the biggest problems of this commission. You can imagine when I was there, we were following these cases. They were concluded, I think, last year, 7 years ago. A span of 7 years. And this is something that this committee and the honorable members of National Assembly need to address, the issue of how long should a case take to be completed. Out of that, these were several plots in some areas of the country. I don't know whether I'm allowed to, I will not quote names, I will not quote, but I'll just talk about it. And last year, there was a bargain between the commission and those guys. They surrendered several pieces of land and they took some. So the act allows for negotiation. When both parties, I think, they are exhausted, when they realize they are going nowhere, that one happened. Several plots were surrendered back. Some public plots in prime area of a city, they were meant for recreation facility as for public. They had to surrender those ones. The other ones that were somewhere else, there was an agreement. I can also look at the issue of Grand Regency. When Grand Regency case was there, I was actually in the commission. It was a similar approach, Mheshimiwa, where there was a give and take between somebody, maybe you know him very well, and the entity. And there was an agreement. He surrendered the hotel, and the hotel was handed over to Central Bank from EACC. So that was also part of that bargain.
Okay. Good. I think that those questions by the two members have been answered. Let me invite Vice Chair. There is one item I will raise later, but let the Vice Chair have the floor now. So we'll give you.
You still have 70, don't answer.
Oh, yeah. Shamala?
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. Vice Chair and Shamala first, then.
I almost referred to you as General, but Major, last night, I walked into Westgate. It was the first time I went there since that terrible day in 2013. The horror, the terror, and the fear came back. And I couldn't help, and I have been a victim of the 98 bomb blast. I was actually cut from here to here, and my uncle died in the 98 bomb blast. And I couldn't help but wonder and ask this question of corruption and its link to terrorism. And I want you to expound on that. And after that, I'm very impressed. You seem to be, well, I'm not surprised. You're a retired military officer. And you seem to come across as very strong and very brave. But I wonder, what can break you? And do you have any weaknesses?
Okay. Related question. Mr. Barak, when politicians are elected to office, member of parliament, governor, presidents, they always say within the next 100 days, I intend to achieve 1, 2, 3. Can you tell this committee and the country what is it that you think or you would like to achieve on this war against corruption? What would be your desired objective to achieve within the first 100 days from the day if this committee approves you and the National Assembly and you are given the job? What could be your summary of what you will achieve, what you intend to achieve in the first 100 days? And as you answer that question, I also want to give you the information that a lot of us have given those promises. And others have achieved, and they are still fulfilling. And this is a very important question because Kenyans actually might not even need 100 days. They might even need lesser days. So can you address, and you are on live television now. Kenyans are listening to you, and you are unanswered. And this committee will ask you that question after 100 days.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
I think, no, because the Vice Chair question is a bit long, answer those two questions by me and Shamala.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. The question by Honorable Shamala on corruption and terrorism, I can give a very long explanation because this is something that I used to instruct at the National Intelligence Academy, that there's a very big correlation between terrorism and corruption, and also the issue of, are the physical borders enough to guard against terrorism? The Americans have spent millions with the Mexican border, yet illegal migrants are just crossing into America. On terrorism and corruption, I want to give a comparative analysis between us and our neighbors. I have worked at the border point of the Ethiopian frontier. The Ethiopians are bordering Somalia with a bigger stretch than Kenya. But you will never hear Addis has been hit by terrorists. You will never hear any city in Ethiopia that has been hit by terrorism. The reason is that Ethiopian soldiers and policemen are extremely patriotic. If they get hold of you with a fake document, the law enforcement agency there, no matter how much bundles of money you give them, they will arrest you. For our case, it's a little bit different, and I'm sorry to say that. When people cross the border, there's a lot of laxity, and corruption partly plays a role. In 1998 bomb blast, when those guys were nabbed, they had better documents to prove that they were Kenyans than most of us. But these were people who could hardly speak Swahili. They got those documents because of corruption. So corruption in general does not only deprive the common Kenyan his potential of realizing his dream as a citizen, but corruption is a very big threat to national security. So we cannot we cannot say that we have complete security by having an effective police force, an effective military mechanism, when there's corruption thriving in the country. People can come and bribe and get some documents. Maybe they are planning to do something very bad. And this is exactly what happened, Madam, in Westgate. This is exactly what happened with 9/11 and even the bombing, I think, at Kikambala Hotel. Weaknesses, that's a very interesting question. And I know the media is watching me. My children are watching me. My wife is watching me. My mother, who is 91 years old, amewekwa kwa kiti anaangalia mimi nikiongea. So one of the biggest weaknesses I have is because I joined the military at a very young, even my children will go up to the bedroom and say, Mama, hii mzee ameanza mambo ya jeshi hapa. Then, but I have one advantage over that. Because I left the military 19 years ago, I've been able to toe down. But sometimes it crop up, I grip people, then I realize nimeenda mbali niite pole pole na release ile pressure. That is one of the problems. The other problem that I have, I'm too systematic. If I leave this bottle here, I must come and find it here. If you bring it here, I will ask you, well, how come that this bottle? So sometimes, and all this brings about the military background out of it. Too much living into system that moves in a systematic way. And I know there's fear within Kenyans that maybe I'll go there and put a military drive. I want to assure this committee that I have been resocialized back to the civilian world. I've undergone a lot of senior management courses in leadership. I've interacted with civilians, and my military somehow has been diluted, but sometimes it crops up. So when it crops up, bear with me. Maybe even here, maybe I'm doing some mannerism which shows of military character, and which is not allowed in this kind of appearance. I beg that you forgive me. On
we would like to look at it in a positive sense. So, because I think there are things which can be done with the military, I don't know what you call it.
Zeal and precision.
Precision, which cannot be done, you know, by others who don't have that particular. And I think all of us here, I'm a lawyer by profession, my vice chair is a lawyer, we have, you know, people in various fields. And I think Kenya is a composition of all these people. And I think we want to value that particular character that you... So we don't want people to feel like you are recreating about... No. As long as you apply that particular character for the betterment of the Kenyan people, I think it is a good... It's a good thing.
Thank you, sir.
And then what makes me happy, Vice Chair, is the fact that he actually sometimes realizes. You know, what is important is the fact that when it comes up, you discover, and then you don't down.
Thank you, sir.
I think that is good. Proceed.
The next question about my 100 days. I don't want to be, sorry, I know you're politicians, but I don't want to be political. It's a very interesting question. I'm joining an organization, if I'll be given this seat, where you have the society that is very, very impatient to see very quick results in the fight against corruption. My priority, if I'm going to be given this post, I have several issues which I have talked about. I want to go and do what you call an institutional audit of the Commission with focus on three things. There are some files which DPP, ODPP, and the office, the director of DCI, the director of the Criminal Investigation Department. I think out of that, we'll be able to see cases in terms of priority. All those cases that will be having few gaps for them to be addressed at the department. We are on the receiving end. I was telling somebody that when I tell people, when I left KCC and I tell people I work with Kengen, They don't talk. Say, oh, good. They will even tell you, iko kijana wangu engineer, unaweza nitafutia kazi huko. Reputable image and everything. When you tell somebody, I work with KCC, a guy looks at you, and you can just tell there's something, a reservation about the organization. So we need to go and try to reinvent ourselves. Let us engage the public. Let the public engage ourselves. Let us not look at this committee as a grilling committee, but as a partner. I'm just having some sort of unexplained wealth. So it should be a mechanism within the staff to monitor, are they involved in possible malpractice contrary to what they promise the public? And lastly, I will look at the issue of enhancement of code of ethics. Many state corporations, many public offices, they have the best code of ethics. When they come for the GOK performance contracts, they produce. We've had corruption prevention committee meeting. These are the minutes. We did this and that with this and that. They score 100%, finished. But if you go inside critically, you realize there are serious gaps in procurement, serious gaps in recruitment, serious gaps in the way they run their businesses. So I look at that in streamlining. I know there will be no immediate results, but it will be a process that shows the taking off of something that is tangible. So, Mr. Honorable Chairman, if you will summon me back after 100 days, the scorecard will not be 100%, but it will show you that I'm heading towards 100%. Thank you.
And should be as close as 100% as possible. I think you've been able to deal with the questions I raised, and Honorable Shamala. Vice Chair.
Okay, he seems to have dealt with one of the questions that I wanted to ask. And this was in respect of Kenyans' expectations. The public confidence in the EACC has gone down, completely gone down. And I say this knowing that there are some people who have just exited the office or are exiting with a new entry. There are, of course, commissioners who are serving. But if you go into the street and ask Kenyans, including this parliament, how the EACC has performed, of course, and you have alluded to it, or the likely question or answer is that they haven't done well. And as you answer these questions here, you are obviously creating public expectation. You are raising their expectation so that they will be watching and looking at how you perform, because where we have reached, we need to tilt the balance in favor of the public, not in favor of individuals. So when I say that, then I want to ask you, in terms of then the real service delivery, of course, you know there is a service charter. You need to look at that and see whether it has been delivered or whether they are working following the service charter. You have talked of the audit, and that was my second question. But so for me, the service delivery, you know, like Kenyans want to know Mbarak entered the office on this date, like the chairman has said, 100 days. Kenyans need to change the expected, the confidence. They want to, and it's only you now, as the CEO, the secretary, who can do that. I think they want to hear, like, within then the 100 days, the chairman asked, or even a longer period, you have done 1, 2, 3. And you have rightly said so in terms of files. The EACC have come to this committee, and they have told us they have some live files. And you have heard about live files, live wire files, even for some time now. I think what we have not had, and if you look at the way the DPP and the EACC, the DCI are working, I think they have also raised the public confidence. Now it is delivery. So we are actually now narrowing down to delivery. So the question is, within that period, what do you think you can hit so that Kenyans, because you know the areas that Kenyans have lost the money. EACC is about, you talked about, initially you told us you will improve the prevention, deterrence, weakness. Now, that is good, but property has been lost. Kenyan property has been stolen. And they seem to have ideas of who has done that. It is the institutions then who need to give us these people. The counties, you know, we have been told there are 4 files almost complete. I think for the last maybe 1 year, 4 files of counties. I don't want to say any names because we don't have. So for me, I want to hear, I will have done this, I will have done this, so that Kenyans can know, yes, this is the right person. While you are doing then on the question of audit, audit, you know, Article 10 talks about transparency, talks about diversity, accountability, impartiality, inclusivity of Kenyans in these institutions. My question is, and of course rules of natural justice, and will you be able, if you find misplacement of jobs, will you be able then to reallocate, to place people where they should be? Remember, even as you answer the first question and the second one, you told us people mobilize along ethnic lines, people mobilize along political lines, along power bases, they name drop, you know, calls, so that you may even find that you will have to send some people home. We want to hear whether you, because the military part, I like that in terms of where we are as a country. Sometimes you may need to apply the precision, the ability to be resistant to pressure. Otherwise, with this job, if you get it, you would have to tell Kenyans, because you know the directors who have come, the CEOs, if you ask Kenyans, they will tell you they are not yet satisfied. So we want to hear. And you have a very good experience. You are strategic in terms of this organization. That's what I would want to say. Yeah.
Okay. We are giving another chance to George.
No, Chairman, sorry. I know I took long. Yeah. There was once, I don't want to say it's a small question. There was a question that I wanted to ask him because he said his mother is 91 and is probably watching.
Yes.
So it means she follows you. You had said when you, in your opening statement, that there is something you learned from her. I think maybe about fairness, equity, perseverance.
And expand on that.
Had she gone to school?
No.
And she taught you some of these things?
Yes, practically.
Yeah, can you just confirm that you then place her in very high esteem?
I think she has actually done it.
No, she wants to hear it again for record purposes. Let's send a message to the mother. I think I agree. You say something that.
Okay, let us allow. Right. We will do that as you combine the questions by Honorable George.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mbarak. You're going to head, just in case we approve you and Parliament approves you, you're going to head the anti-corruption entity in the Republic of Kenya. You will thus be competing not with the Kenyans, but with the international community. Today, we know where our position is in terms of the corruption index. I don't want to name who our competitors are in that, because we all know them. But there are other people whom possibly we are looking towards. That's where we are aiming at, so that in another 2, 3, 4 years, we call them our competitors. Are you able to name for us 5 countries in the world which are, in terms of anti-corruption, not corruption, corruption-free? These are actually what we call role models for the country, so that Kenyans know where we stand in terms of those parameters. Number 2, You've mentioned in your notes very well that you would want to work with the interagencies. Those are the agencies that are working on corruption, the DPP, the DCI, etc. Recently, there was very interesting drama whereby officers from the entity you're going to aid if you succeed from EACC arrested some CID officers, red-handed. They were caught in corruption matters, taken to a police station, and we are told we were not there. We read from the press that CID officers stormed the place, released those guys, and went away with them. That is the last we heard of it. In your own opinion, what really would you have done if such a scenario happened to your officers and involved your office? Number three, recently we had cases of demolitions. I mean, we have known new words like riparian reserves, all that. I know we misuse the word most of the time, but let's use it wisely today, the way it's supposed to be used. When the government or whoever goes to demolish, to reclaim this land, people produce very good titles, excellent titles, approvals, and everything else. And these are genuine. You take them to court, you will win the case. But you know, we say sorry. It doesn't matter how you got it. If it was wrong from the word go, everything that pertains to it is a nullity. In your view, how else would we approach this? Are the demolitions justified in your view and under your law, or there is a different way? If you come to end anti-corruption, you would deal with such matters. Thank you very much.
Okay. You can now answer those.
Good. I'll go back to Madam on the issue of public confidence that is down. And I think there's one challenge that we need to understand about corruption. The investigation cases, we need to understand that the EACC currently has about 400 cases that have been submitted to, they are within the court system. Out of those 400 cases, we have about 70 that were concluded, and there was about 43 to 45, I think, conviction. I want to give an example of, I'm not trying to defend the EACC, but I'll try to give an example to show the challenges that this commission is facing. You know very well the case of the cemetery scandal. When that cemetery scandal took place, I was in KCC. We were the ones dealing with the preliminary investigation, and then by that time I left, went to Kenyan. It took 7.5 years for that case to be concluded. Actually, it is last year. I was even telling somebody at Kenyan that this case, we were the ones who were initially handling, but I left for Kenyan. Are we going to continue having cases taking almost a decade to be disposed, or we need an element of legislation that will ensure that these cases, or partnership with the judiciary, to address issues of the slow pace of dealing with corruption? Chinese, they take less than 2 weeks to deal with a corruption case. Maybe it's not the best example. I may be told this is not a non-democracy, but you see the message that is sent. When you take 7.5 years to deal with one case, what happens to several hundreds? I read the report today of the anti-corruption. When they are dealing with 2,900 cases, what will happen? Now, here is not an issue of blame game. It's an issue that we as a commission, if I'll be given this job, we need to engage the judiciary, we need to engage this committee, we need to engage the members of the National Assembly and say, here we have a problem, how can you assist us? An example on that again, the issue of the investigation taking too long. You see, I really appreciate what the DCI is doing, but we need to note these are cases before court. They have not been determined. As much as we really appreciate what they're doing, they're working smartly. I don't think they're working hard, they're working smartly. which is very good. In today's world, you have to work very smartly because at the end of the day, it's the results. But let us take note that these cases are still in court. The only big advantage I can tell you about these cases, and I praise them, they are going for what you call the big fish, and the impact to the public is very good. The public are really supporting them. So EACC needs to change its approach. That one, rest assured. We need to change how we approach to issues. We have a saying where we say that when baboons are causing chaos in a farm, you go for the big one, kill it, the others will disappear. So we just need to take that approach. On the issue of 100 days for me to give you a solution, we have to understand that corruption is not like an infectious disease where you are given antibiotic and told 5 days, hii infection itakuwa imepotea. Corruption is like a lifestyle disease. In a lifestyle disease, the doctor will play his part. He will tell you, I'm going to give you insulin if it is diabetic, but avoid this, avoid this, avoid this. You have to play your role as a patient. The family members, they have to play their role as family members. Maybe they'll avoid putting cakes openly because they look very appetizing. They will avoid this kind of food because when you see it, there's no resistance, you want to eat. So a combination of the three, you are able to manage these diseases. And that's why if they're called lifestyle diseases, if you follow certain prescription, you are able to manage the disease. Now, if you look at corruption in this country, corruption will not be solved by conviction alone. Corruption will be solved by other auxiliary issues. How we bring up our children. Today, most of us, how we bring up our kids across the country, there's a problem. We don't have time for our children. We believe that we should pursue our careers, look for wealth. Even by the time you age, you look at your children and you're getting worried that this is the empire I have built, but there's nobody to inherit. So the inculcation of values, spirituality, practical spirituality, not a ritual spirituality where you say, I'm a good Christian, I'm a good Muslim, just go to the church and the mosque, you come out. We have to be in the model of the East Asian countries. If you happen to be in a country like Taiwan, you board a train, you drop the most expensive mobile, you go to the next stage, forward or backward, you'll find your mobile has been kept in a lost and found basket. We need to revisit how we behave as citizens. So the issue of education, setup of code of ethics on governance will really assist in addressing corruption. The issue of investigation is punitive to send a message, which is very good, but is not enough. On the issue of my mother, I sympathize with her. It's an interesting history. My mother was married by my father as an orphan. She was 16. Removed.
It's okay, proceed. Okay, you can move to the other issue.
I'll talk about the issue of you've talked about demolitions. The issue of demolitions and the titles. I think we need to look at the issue of when these titles were acquired. Quite a number of us here, we are old enough, and there was a time in the government system where impossible things were possible. And people misused that time. Illegal allocation of land. There are laws which says that you cannot build this number of meters from the river. People will go get some sort of approvals. It's a problem that has cut across the whole country as a result of governance. Now, here they are, people are paying back for those shortcuts. It's a very serious problem, it's a quagmire where nobody can move forward or can move backward. Quite a number of these people have given titles that were issued by the government, but somebody says even though they were issued by the government, they were not properly issued. So it's a bitter learning process. I sympathize with the people who lose their property. But equally, there's a message that you can take a shortcut, but one day you'll pay for it. That is the way I look at it. Then there's the issue of 5 countries that are role model in anti-corruption. I've not gone over the index of these countries, but I can give you, I think one of them is New Zealand. You have Sweden. They are mainly in Scandinavian countries. Yeah, Sweden, you have Norway. And how many of those things I've mentioned? 3. Then you have a country like, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, and then Denmark and Norway. Mainly Scandinavian countries. Those are the role model countries in terms of very low corruption index. Very interesting, very interesting. And I think there's something I have not finished, which I really wish to give my observation to the committee. If you look at the Anti-Corruption Act, it talks of the EACC must investigate all cases of corruption that are reported to the Commission. I have done a corruption course with the FBI in USA. I was there for 1 month, and we were taken through the system of how they handle corruption cases. Equally, the Serious Fraud Office in Britain, they have a criteria of how to handle corruption cases. In Kenya, if somebody reports to the EACC that I went to this office and my document was missing, I had to bribe 300 bob, and this is the person I bribed, I remember him, you are obliged to investigate that case and to give a feedback of what you have done. Now, let us be realistic. The commission has got about 700 staff. The investigators, they are about 100. They are getting about 2,900 cases that are corruption related. Majority of those cases are what you call low impact corruption cases. We may need, just like the FBI, the Serious Fraud Office, to have a set threshold of which cases will be undertaken by the anti-corruption body. But because they are under pressure, you find that the investigators are rushing to this case, they are handling this file. This case has come in the media, they rush to that, and they are nowhere. We know very well, even the lion, when it targets those antelopes or whatever, it takes half of its time to choose that I'm going for this. Even if another antelope passes in front of it, it will not even blink. So we need to amend the legislation to have the threshold of corruption cases that could be handled by the anti-corruption body. But when you say all the cases, in a country that is ranked as one of the most corrupt, with a small entity of 100 investigators, we need to be realistic. That is not achievable. Thank you.
No, you did not capture the incident of.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Chairman. Yeah, I think.
And you just need to give what you know. You don't need to.
No, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example
because we are not here to force you. Whatever you have, information you have about it, just share. However, proceed.
Yes, Chairman, I think it's a very interesting case, and it touches on the leadership. I'll give an example of the military. Military, when soldiers misbehave in the public, maybe they fight in a club, the police will arrest them and immediately hand them over to military police for disciplinary action. That's the trend, unless it's a capital, it's a crime. But basically, the ordinary whatever, they will do that. They'll even communicate, and these things will be solved amicably, not even to come to the attention of the media. I think the problem there was an issue of coordination, and it is actually very embarrassing for such thing to come to the attention of the public that two respected agencies are fighting in public over something that could have been handled inwardly and a solution being found. So it all touches on how the two entities conduct their management. There was nothing wrong by one entity conducting the other one, that we have this kind of a problem, and that thing could have been solved. So that's the issue of personal management and administration.
Okay. Now, just on that, before we move to the other members, there is the issue of low impact corruption cases. And I think this is the second time you have raised that issue. It appears to me, and this is very important, it appears to me that it is in your opinion that you need to focus on high impact corruption cases. Now, that can pose also a challenge, because what is high impact corruption cases will of course send the right message to the public and so on. But I think equally, Bwana nominee, if we approve you in this, even the other cases which may not necessarily have serious impact, and that is the bulk of the cases. Look at, for example, the cases on borders. You know, where police officers, and this is something which happened in my county, and I raised it yesterday, not only on 12/12 when we had the celebrations, where police officers would actually want to take advantage of the borders and take money from them, 100 shillings, 200, 500. And 500 for a border dealer is like 1,000,000 shillings, you know. So I want to agree with you that we might need to classify, these cases, so that we don't say all cases should be reported to you, will be dealt with you. And I think, members of this committee, this is a very important recommendation. And as we move forward, assuming this nominee was to be approved, that classification should be done in our legislation, so that then but give equal attention also to the other cases, because most of the Kenyan people deal with matters whose value is not as much as the ones we want now to deal with under the high impact corruption cases. So that is an observation. You seem to be more concerned, with the big cases with impact. That's okay. It will send the right message. But since we'll be dealing with you as we go by, I think it is also important to focus on the low impact cases. Now, we are almost actually concluding. Let me allow Honorable Mutai. And I think Mutai, Kamote.
Thank you, Chair. Major, you are aware that our president is passionate on the Big Four agenda. I will want you to outline the role of EACC in implementing and fulfilling the president's legacy. That's implementing the Big Four agenda. That's number one. Number two, you have stated it clearly in your opening statement that you're going to redeem the image of EACC, which is something Kenyans are waiting for. I'll be very open. The image of EACC went down because people were seeing them focusing on the small fish, as you've put it. So I do believe that, and Kenyans are really expecting EACC to go for the big fish, which includes top civil servants, top politicians, big businessmen. And as we all know, corruption fights back. I know with your military background, you've been into many fights, but I believe this is a different fight altogether. It comes with pressure. You are touching on people who are well connected, and there's going to be a lot of pressure directed on you. How do you intend to tackle this pressure when it starts coming to you? Major. That is all, Chair. Thank you.
Mutai, you wanted to...
Yes. Now, on the question I had on the challenges, I think you've dealt with it. So I'll go to the next question. That if you had to be appointed, what would you do to shield EACC from any form of interference while carrying out its functions and duties? First, as it is now, there is a massive pressure, and there are people out there with a school of thought that EACC should only be dealing with issues to do with violation of code of ethics, that the issues of corruption, issues of bribery, issues of economic crimes, which all of them have a criminal element in it, should be dealt by the office of the DCI. In fact, there is a fight ongoing now to ensure that most of these functions that are being currently done by the EACC should be shifted to the office of the DCI. Now, if you are to take out this position, what should you do to shield the issue you've raised now on the threshold of corruption cases? In my opinion, that will be ceding power away from EACC again to the same group who think that you should be doing only matters to do with ethics. What should you do yourself as the head of that institution to ensure that you shield this institution from external pressures? Also, the institution faces pressure from the political wing. That cannot be overlooked. That in any event, as soon as you touch on issues touching on politicians, they'll be breathing on your neck. They'll be on your case. As my colleague says, they're well connected. The business barons in this country, as soon as you go for them, they have the might to be on your case. What would you put in place to ensure that as the head of that institution, you are cushioned from these pressures, you are cushioned from school of thoughts who feel they should fight EACC, to ensure you have a thin function which you'll not be able to bite? Thank you.
And maybe, Mr. Mbarak, I want to even strengthen the question by Honorable Mutai. He's talked about how do you shield the institution from political or rather external forces. That is an institution, EACC. But we also have you as the head of the institution. You can shield your directors, your commissioners, your juniors. But Barak is the CEO. Who will shield you? It is you and the law. How, therefore, will you, for example, deal with a situation where you receive a call? I don't want to say from where. which intends to influence your perception on an issue. You've done investigations, you are satisfied, but you receive some instructions or requests from certain officers telling you to go slow, or, you get what I'm saying. So I'm going beyond the institution, and I'm looking at you as Mbarak, given the responsibility on behalf of the Kenyan people by this house. How will you, so as Mutai is concerned about how you shield the institution, I am worried myself on how you will shield yourself on those external interference, so that you combine that question.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Let me start with the issues brought by Honorable Kamote. On the issue of the Big Four agenda and the role of the EACC, I will try to correlate that one with the NYS. The NYS, it changed from a low budget entity to a very big budget entity because of the change of the role, which was, the idea was noble. Then a big budget came, and people thought this is something we can take advantage. With the agenda of the Big Four, first thing we need to do to realize that this agenda will include massive expenditure, massive mobilization of money to achieve. So how do we come in as a commission? We have to do what you call a proactive approach of doing what you call a comprehensive corruption risk assessment. What are the possible avenues that people will take advantage to start abuse of this facility? It happened with the NYS, it happened with the youth fund. The objective was very good. So you realize that all this big agenda that the government comes in, you realize it gives an opportunity for corruption to thrive. So what will happen with the commission, before we start seeing in the newspaper that money is being stolen in part of this agenda, we need to set systems and strengthen them. And of course, the National Assembly has got a subcommittee monitoring on the government expenses and whatever. So we need to come down as a commission, working with this commission, committee, looking at other committees through this committee, how the monitoring of the implementation of this agenda is done. Instead of waiting until something goes wrong, the whole program goes haywire. On the redeeming of EACC, which includes the issue of, I don't want to call them small fish and big fish cases, I call them high and low impact cases. Looks a little bit civil. The issue here is